It's 10:30. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone, councillors, officers and members of the public to the meeting of the Licensing and Community Safety Committee. Please may I remind you to either switch your mobile phones off or at least put them on silent. Thank you. There are members of the press attending this meeting virtually, and so can I please ask those attending virtually to switch off your microphone to avoid any disruption during the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and will be available in due course on the council's YouTube channel. Reminder for councillors: to ensure that those attending virtually can hear the proceedings and for the recording to capture the entire meeting, please ensure that you project your voice and speak clearly. Please remember it's a formal meeting and therefore do not refer to councillors or officers by their first name. There is no fire alarm planned, therefore upon hearing the fire alarm, please leave the building by your nearest marked fire exit and assemble at the top of the top car park. Please also be aware that the contents displayed on your iPad or laptop may be seen by others or members of the public attending the meetings, so no shopping online, please. Therefore, please close down screens which are displaying confidential information during the public part of the meeting. Thank you. Today I'm chairing, I'm Councillor Julie Hunt, Councillor Louisa York, who would normally chair. Mother sadly passed away and her dad's seriously ill. So obviously our thoughts are with her. Okay, agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Received apologies from Councillors York, Denton, Milton and Quinn, Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, excuse me, to approve as correct records the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of April 2025 and the 27th of May 2025, pages 5 to 12. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. It's unanimous.
Abstain, Chair.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise. I thought I saw your hand up then.
I was thrown out of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not bitter.
Okay. Item 3, items brought forward which in the opinion of the chair should be considered by the meeting as a matter of urgency. I don't think there is any. Thank you very much. Item 4, any declarations of interest, and they should have gone to Bev already.
I've received none, Chair.
Thank you. Item 5, to agree the agenda between Part A and Part B. There is no Part B, so we're going to go straight into Part A. Item 6, community safety updates. Crime Safety Partnership Officer to report, please. Sorry, guys. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Here today to give you an overview of what's been happening in the community safety world ever since our last appearance at the last meeting. Joined today with by Sergeant Kevin Connor. We've got 3 areas I'd like to cover today. First one being hate crime, which is a continued priority for the Community Safety Partnership. It was previously classed as what we call an emerging theme, something that we would keep an eye on, but now it's become a priority for our partnership. At the last meeting in April, we think it's an important area of work that we need to focus on over the next year, and of course we will continue to update you as a committee over that of our progress. The second issue I'd like to update on is modern slavery. It's a brief update about the ongoing work and the development of process maps and where we are as a partnership in terms of recognising and being able to respond to modern slavery. And I think both those things reflect the evolving demographics in North Devon. You know, we really want to enhance our partnerships response to diversity and make us more effective in dealing with issues that might affect particular communities. then Sergeant Connor's going to talk on youth crime, particularly around in our town centres, and the work that we'll be doing on that as well. So, hate crime. So, our approach, I think, I'm going to give you an introduction, then Sergeant Connor's going to go through our action plan and what we're actually doing. But it's important, I think, we set the scene. So, unfortunately, hate crime is a feature of modern society, and we, North Devon, no exception to anywhere else in the country, even internationally. So I think it's important that we recognise the fact and that we do something about it. And the starting point, I think, is to increase the diversity of our partnership. So our partnership is a statutory agencies, us, the police, fire service, probation, the police, PCC, the Police and Crime Commissioner, his office, and we were all, I think, quite a narrow part of the community. So we're all statutory services, and sometimes the voice of diversity can be lost amongst us all sitting around in a room. So to further our diversity as a partnership, we've invited Sunrise Diversity, which hopefully you'll all be aware of as a community resource in Barnstaple, to be standing members of our partnership. So we hope that will go some way to widening the diversity of our partnership. Now, that doesn't mean that work in that area is finished. We're always looking for opportunities to make our partnership more diverse. But we feel that inviting Sunrise to be a standing member is a really good start and a pragmatic measure to cover more bases than we're covering at the moment. So that's been in progress over the last year, but now as this has become a priority, they will be a much more important member. I think also they are there to review the work that we're doing, to advise and to sort of hold our feet to the fire, if you like, to make sure that we are doing what we're going to say we're doing. For those of you who may not be aware of Sunrise, they're a charity dedicated to creating community cohesion and then discrimination, ensuring safety and respect for all, including Black and other diverse ethnic communities and LGBTQ plus individuals. So as I said, we're looking to seek further engagement with other groups. One group that I've identified as age concern, so I'm going to talk about youth issues in enrolment. So there are issues around age as well, I think, that we need to recognise. I think, the Community Safety Partnership is working on crime and disorder. But the idea to increase diversity is clearly not just about crime. It's an overall consideration of diversity across our organisations, and to recognise the fact that North Devon is increasingly the demographics even of North Devon are no different to anywhere else, and they are constantly changing. There are new groups emerging, new groups, population changes all the time, and we need to be aware of that fact. So one of the key barriers that we found is the difficulties that people might find in reporting crimes that they have been subject to. There might be a lack of confidence in action once that crime has been reported, or that incident's been reported, and scepticism that action won't happen if reports are made. Maybe there's a lack of suitable opportunities to report. People might not feel confident about using the police as a report mechanism, or to go direct to the police for those reasons that I mentioned. So we need to increase the opportunities that people have to report the issues that they face. So our plan is to really connect with existing resources in the community, like Sunrise. It's a pragmatic plan. We don't have a great deal of finance or any finance to increase anything other than use the really great resources that are already in the community. And Sergeant Connor will go on to talk about the plan that we've got, which outlines that we are tapping into existing resources. It's a long-term plan. We feel it's quick, it's easy, and it's quick to implement, and it draws on existing resources in the community. And we think that as a CSP, we can take a leadership role in leading these efforts. We've already engaged with other districts across Devon, and they are interested in following our action plan that Kevin's going to talk about in a moment. And we're working at a Devon level as well. Sergeant Connor is the chair of the Devon-wide working group that we have on this issue. So if you want to talk about the action plan.
Yeah, morning everyone. Thank you very much for having us. It is appreciated. It's absolutely vital that as an organisation from the police, but also the representative of the Community Safety Partnership, we have a voice, and we obviously can speak more effectively to our communities if we speak to those elected members that our communities have asked to represent them. So I do genuinely appreciate it. It's a lovely opportunity to have, and obviously it's the people that we're speaking to online as well. Thank you to you too. Yeah, without, Tim's already alluded to, without reliance on existing funding streams or extending funding streams or project-based finance, we can't introduce consistency. There is no longevity. One of the things that we heard from our communities was exactly that, or from our diverse communities via our colleagues at Sunrise, was the fact that there have been barriers to reporting because people from diverse communities have felt let down before. The catastrophic impact of hate crime on our communities and those individuals within our communities, people feeling marginalised, people feeling left out, is a barrier to anybody wanting to engage. You as elected members would know that. You need to be connected. You need to have the confidence of the individuals that are electing you, as much as you need to have the confidence of the people who haven't elected you. You have to have their confidence, because if people aren't confident in longevity, if people aren't confident in your consistency of approach, then there is no conversation. And ultimately, all that we have is conversations in order to impart our message. And that's what this is based on. And that's what we're trying to focus on. As Tim's made reference to already, it's a pragmatic response to identify existing networks and use them to underpin this, we believe, incredibly valuable strategy. Hate crime, quite simply, is catastrophic to our communities. It is catastrophic on all levels. This strand that we're trying to put into place, and I think we've been successful in getting as far as we've got to and including today, and hopefully going forward into the longer term, and the recognition by the CSP, I think is emblematic of that. It's the recognition of that commonality of harm. It hurts us all, and our communities are hurt. We're all hurt. Our interdependence is not negotiable. We do depend on one another. Any environment depends on our interdependence. You harm one, you harm everybody. And as I say, catastrophic harm is something that we can't afford to sustain. So the plan, it's simplistic, but it's simplistic by design. We sought initially, and this is something that we have delivered, to deliver awareness sessions to our partners, starting with those individuals that interact with our communities. So we contacted the Community Security Trust, which is a Jewish organisation who operate at a national level, and gave us the opportunity to, or brought in a trainer to impart a hate crime awareness session, which, in conjunction with our colleagues at the South Devon and Dartmoor CSP, managed to invite over 350 staff partners, third sector partners, to hear a message about the catastrophic impact of hate crime. It's a case study that was based around the Lawrence inquiry, which I know that you will all be very well aware of, which is the Macpherson report into the racist murder of Stephen Lawrence in 1993. It was really well received, and I feel that we had a marker to lay down that this is what we're talking about. When I talk about catastrophic impact of hate crime, ultimately that is where it leads: the death of a black teenager in a community in this country, and then the associated failings that came after it. And that's what the stark truth that we have to be cognizant of in order to realise what catastrophic harm actually can be and where it can lead. We're linked in, as I say, with other community safety partnerships. What we're planning to do with the Devon plan that Tim and I have been leading on since last year is getting other CSPs across the New Devon area. So obviously the 4 of them that exist from North and Torridge to South Devon and Dartmoor to Exeter East and then Exeter, is to grow our diverse community and grow that representation as we've sought to do on the CSP in this part of the world. How's that done? Exactly the same as we've done it here, which is encouraging our other CSPs to identify third sector diversity groups with a view to adding them to their board and adding members of those individuals to their board. In doing so, quite simplistically, once again, we increase the diverse representation within those voices within our CSPs then can be reflected in how that CSP operates and how that CSP works. And also, Tim's used that turn of phrase there, we do, grasp the nettle, hold our feet to the fire, have those sometimes painful conversations in order to make sure that we arrive at the right outcomes and protect those individuals from those diverse communities across our county. It's not just a one-way street as well. The third strand of that is to attend and support those events that our diverse support groups across the county and more specifically in this part of the world in their events that they hold in the community. They're overt, they're very clear, and they're also an indication, emblematic if you will, of our preparedness to be seen to be standing with our diversity groups in the area so that our public can see, what our intentions are in terms of what that representation actually looks like. To that end, police and partners have assisted Sunrise Diversity at 2 of their events last year and also in more targeted, I wouldn't say events, but individual cases, the detail of which I shan't go into, at their premises over the last 12 months too. In reality, that looks like a regular and I would hope very healthy conversation that we have between CSP members and members of Sunrise Diversity in order that we are constantly engaging and using that strand in order to make sure that there is an ongoing conversation. It's that consistency of message and it's that consistency of engagement that ultimately any relationship is based upon. And then the 4th aspect of the plan is that CSPs will be committed to creating a designated third-party reporting facility. Another thing that we have heard from our colleagues in Sunrise, and I think it's something that also came out of the Community Securities Trust briefing that we had at the start, was that people from diverse communities don't see that consistency and don't feel that confidence as a result in reporting matters of criminality around hate crime. Top and bottom of it is those, albeit lower gravity, less serious, lower impact hate crime matters. And I use that when I'm viewing this through the lens that I've talked about homicide matters, which would be more significant in terms of harm. Those are the germination of those issues. And it's inarguable that that is the case. So that being the case, we need to make sure that we empower and allow people to feel confident in reporting these matters. If people aren't comfortable in reporting these matters directly to the police, who ultimately you do report crimes to, then what we do is we make sure that people within our diversity support groups are able to possibly support to report and make sure that people can report to them and act as advocates on their behalf. Once more, the dialogue that we have managed to enjoy as a result of the first 3 aspects that I've spoken to you about are fundamental in that 4th strand. That's ultimately, as organisationally, the police have got existing media and communications around how to report hate crime, and there is existing, as I say, media communications marketing around that, the zero tolerance to hate crime media that Devon and Cornwall Police have through the PTC. We ran that through with Sunrise Diversity and they agreed that what we held was fit for purpose at the moment and was recognised and accepted as being something that would be helpful to their service users. So as such, we have chosen to utilise those existing networks within our public libraries and within our staff and third sector partners to actually push that media a bit further, which is Article 5 on this plan. We have considered to look and ensure partnership learning is shared from the hate crime scrutiny panel. I'm aware of the fact, obviously, we've got a councillor sitting on this today who's a member of that, and our DCT sergeant, who's our diverse communities team sergeant over at Exeter, has chosen to take that on for the next 12 months. And then there's a regular schedule of meetings to oversee and steer this plan. That aspect is something that will be going forward as of July. We have a event planned with Sunrise, I believe, on the 21st of this month, which we're going to engage with. Then arrangements are in place to reconvene the Devon Diversity Steering Group, who will then revisit this plan and will add any necessary edits or additions to after that date. And that's me. Has anybody got any questions about that?
Any questions? Councillor Yousaf.
So what was the current report about the hate crime? Is it still the same, up or down, the recent report?
The recent report, I wouldn't be able to tell you as to what that is now,
Okay.
unless you've got more detail on that yourself at the moment. I don't know there's been figures that have been released on that more recently.
Okay,
Councillor,
find out
I'm
that.
dreadfully sorry.
Okay, and the second question, please.
Yes.
Okay. As you explained about the diverse people, they never get the right reporting to the police. Excuse me,
No, it's fine.
So, as you aware of that, because as just you mentioned about third-party reporting, they don't feel comfortable. Yes, they don't comfortable. They don't feel comfortable because, as I raised that previously, the reporting system is not that good, very poor reporting system, because if someone came to report, there's so many questions raised. The first starting, when you're going to report non-emergency number, you have to call, the waiting list so long. So people don't have that much time. Case report. Police never get the right figure. Number two, when they're going through on the phone call, there's so many.
Question here.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be a question, not.
Yeah, that is the
not a
question.
Statement.
That is the question,
Okay.
because that's related with. Otherwise, how can you go through to them? Because the procedure system is not the correct. So if you're going to the phone, then you have to wait so long. Then so many questions the police asking, and they don't feel comfortable. Then third party. Another thing is that because of language barrier, you have to understand this. So they find that somebody they have to get involved. There's somebody on behalf of them talking. I do a lot. What did I do? I used to do, and I've been doing it over 10 years now. So that's the system have to be changed and made more flexible, more easier for minority people. And North Devon Sunrise, you say this is the only things that police get involved with the North Devon Sunrise. But we have to understand that North Devon Sunrise, when we talk BAME community, Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, but the Sunrise is not anymore the Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, because most of them East European people member on there. We got more diverse now than North Devon. More people works in care home, hospital, and South India. There is a South Indian group called Malayala group or something. They got 300-400 people that group on, but they're not involved with the police. And police are not finding the source how they can involve widely with the BAME people, the more involvement with the North Devon Sunrise. And Sunrise, as I said, the East European people more goes there than BAME people. So police have to somehow to get engaged more. And that is my role as well, to get involved, how the police can get involved. And that's what I'm trying at the moment, but we need some more help to get involvement to other people around here.
Thank you.
If I could just come back
Yeah,
on that.
sure.
I think they're valid points.
Yeah.
I do sense a question in there, and it's a question in tone as much as a quite a wide topic. So I do accept that, Councillor. Thank you.
I think it is really, because I've seen it, especially in North Devon, it is getting quite very, very diverse now. And some people do have problems even with the 111,
They do,
Thing.
and there are some specific barriers.
Yeah.
I mean, and as when there are any barriers, organisationally as a council and as a
Yeah.
society, we place in there reasonable adjustments in order to make sure that, you know, those protected characteristics that people have are catered for,
Yeah.
and that we are as fair and as equitable as we can be.
That's all you can do, really.
But we should always strive to do more. And that is something that we organisationally are. I think what you can sense from the tone of what I've given to you there, hopefully you would sense that there's an air of humility about it.
Mm.
I don't believe for one moment that we are where we need to be. But by the same token as well, that I think it's clear that there's an aspiration that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Biederman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Tim, and sorry, Sergeant, I've forgotten your name.
Just Kevin or two.
Kevin, thank you.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's good that this is a priority and clearly a priority of the partnership. So I was sort of a bit of a challenge really when Councillor Youssef asked you a question about what the latest trends are, and we look at here and you meet daily to discuss trends and what's happening in the community. You can't answer a simple question on whether the trend is up, down or middle.
I think therein lies the issue, if that's the question. When you say a trend in terms of criminality, trends in terms of a particular crime
I'm
type.
talking about at the moment, aren't we? So,
Well, the key is that when's the question being asked and at what point I can give you the answer on that. If you want the answer to that, I'm more than happy to feed it back to you. I could give you an answer possibly 12 months ago, or I could give you one from now. I mean, the reality of it is I don't know what it is this morning. I haven't checked it today.
no, but I mean, what was it yesterday? I mean, through you, Chair, I think you can't call something a priority and talk about
As opposed to when, though.
And on our front page, we're talking about how we have daily meetings to discuss it. We, you know, and it goes back to the fundamental of the question. If people can't report it, you're not going to know because you're not getting the data that you know, do you? So, you know, like I say, do we have a true picture? You know, we all know 95% of North Devonians are really welcoming and open, but unfortunately there are a small minority in the community that are not.
And I think therein lies the issue, and it's something that, whilst, and I appreciate the fact that the best metric that we have are those crime stats. The reality of it is, and we do address it in terms of, I think, point 4 that I put on here, which is the attempt to support and report. I think it's massively underreported.
Yeah.
I don't think you get all the reports.
No, I think that's the point. I think you're missing my point. I am interested in crime, but I mean, I look at this, the community safety hub personally, I might be wrong here, is much more of a holistic, you know, it's a group of organisations all coming together, you know, with equal responsibility to try and root out, and that includes us as councillors. The problem in the community, we're part of the, you know, the people that should be trying to sort of soften the issues and get into the community and help in some way or other. There's lots of ways you can do that. So what we need to know is, because quite often something won't reach a crime level, it won't, you know, hopefully we actually get there before it is real hatred. It's just low level, you know. I mean, I'll use it
about using that certain phrase as well. Not talking about harm that's felt by our community.
Mm.
Harm doesn't always reach the threshold of a crime taking place, but it's still harm.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and that's the exact point I'm making. But we don't seem to know, and I would have thought we would know almost on a daily basis of what is going on in the community as a community safety hub. You know, what's coming into our call centre here, what's coming into the police 101 number, you know, Crime Stoppers, whatever the, you know, there's a multitude of reasons, ways that people can report and probably do use, you know, the MP's office, our own inboxes. You know, how are we capturing what the real feeling is in the community? Because social media is certainly a dangerous place to go for you. If we are,
I think the difficulty as well, obviously, this type of, I mean, you know, these type of crimes are massively underreported. The things that we do see indicates that there's possibly an increase, but we can't statistically prove that, because it feels like there's a things that people are tolerating and not reporting, and that's the bit we need to get to, I think.
Thank you. Kevin could probably
provide a report with statistics that he can collate from various areas that he is able to gain data from to this committee regularly, once a year or half yearly or something, but it may not give the entire picture. I think that's what you're trying to say.
I think with a level of these,
I'm not, you know, and I'm not,
hands on that, yeah.
it's very difficult, but, you know, if we say it's my point is, we're saying it's a priority, but we have no idea what the current picture is and what's actually happening. That, you know, of course, people aren't going to report because we sat here this morning in a public meeting and we don't know what the problem is. So I've tried, you know, basically saying we don't know how to collect data or
They're not in drafts, don't they?
Excuse me, can you not
Look at
interrupt?
that.
Excuse me. Thank you. There's some people waiting to speak. Thank you. Kevin, perhaps at the next meeting, would you be able to provide some sort of data?
In fact, once more, as with any data I can do, if I've got point to point, then I can
Yeah.
show you a trend. We've got to
I think it'll
start
give
at
us
the
a better
picture.
idea. You know what I mean? Because like you say, you
If you see, I'd go the other way as well, is that if I'm showing that we've got a decrease in incidences, does that mean they're not being reported, or does that mean it's not happening? Therein lies the difficulty. And I think that's where I've chosen to try and use more of a narrative in order to illustrate the issue. And I disagree. We do know there's an issue, because we know there's an issue because of the more helpful aspects of media, because what we hear in our communities, what we are hearing from our partners locally in Sunrise who do speak to us and are in contact with people from diverse communities, those who are speaking, and they are reporting to us that there has been a lack of confidence. There has been, you know, individuals that I've spoken to who have been a victim of hate crime. I have seen those reports come into our system. So in answer to your question, no, I can't give you an accurate sort of metric at the moment, or using that metric an accurate figure. What I can say to you is, yeah, they do get reported. Yes, this does happen. Yes, there are perpetrators of those crimes who live in our communities, and there are people who are subsequently harmed by it.
And just very quickly come back, Chair, and because the data would be useful, but I think also how do we break down those barriers? So how are we going to give people the confidence to report? So I think, you know, that would be something else that we need to look at.
Councillor Whitehead.
I think the most important wording here that we really all need to consider is your very first phrase, and you said it was an emerging theme. And as such, an emerging theme means it's only just starting to happen. So I guess my question to you really is it giving you an awful lot more work? I mean, I know you're arranging awareness sessions. I know you're talking to various partnerships. So you're collating information from them, obviously. But is this giving you an awful lot of extra work and manpower to cope with it, would you say?
I think, firstly, the term emerging theme is just what we use in the CSP world. So it's come,
But it's new, isn't it?
It's new, but it's also as old as time, isn't it? These kinds of.
But I mean, as the demographic in the area changes with new people coming in and the diverse communities, it obviously it's changing your workload, isn't it?
I think it's made us realise that we need to address this really from years when it's not been a priority of the Community Safety Partnership. That it's timely that we for all those reasons that we start to address it. I think the other thing is that it's difficult to prove these types of offences because of underreporting, but the plan that we've got is hopefully time limited. So we're putting things in place to increase all that knowledge that we might be able to glean, to increase that protection that people might feel, to increase their willingness and ability to report. So once we put that in place, the hope is that it's in place forever then.
We can obviously take this, and we take it out to our communities, and we can encourage them to do what you're asking them to do.
Yeah.
And because we cover a very wide area, we can only encourage that.
But this is an acknowledgement that maybe in the past we've missed opportunities to do that. You know, so that's why we think it's timely to address it now. Really, I think that's fair.
Thank you very much.
There's been changes in legislation over the last 25, 30 years that have made this actually a crime type. It was not prior. it was not acknowledged as being a crime. In answer to your earlier question, has it created more demand? I'd suggest it has. If a new crime type is highlighted that needs investigating, rightfully so.
There's people moving around in the country and more are coming down to wonderful North Devon. It's bound to change, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But what it is that we as a society choose to recognise as harmful and then choose to prosecute as an offence has changed. It continues to change and will do so for many, many years going forward, as it has done for many, many years in the past.
Yeah.
But this was not a crime type prior. I was once more quite pointed in my mention about the training that we placed on at the start of it, which was predicated upon the Macpherson report, to the racist murder of Stephen Lawrence on the basis of the fact that prior to that there was no recognition of this type of crime. I've been in the police for approaching 30 years. When I started in the police, this was a crime type. As an individual of a dual heritage, that was particularly disappointing to me as a young constable. As I sit here now in the sort of twilight of my career, I can tell you it's rather more heartening that this is a crime type that we do pursue, and we pursue rigorously as an organisation and thankfully as a society.
Thank you. And we've got Councillor Khan, Councillor Howard Booth, and then Stan. Councillor Khan.
Thank you. I mean, going off, well, not off the subject, but I think we can all say that social media is not a great platform and can be used to, I think, incite racial hatred, and especially I think we've experienced it I'll speak for Councillor Biederman and probably the Ilfracombe councillors as well. And it starts up on social media and the remarks. If I was from an ethnic minority, would be taking it really personal. Is there any way that we can, or do you yourselves keep an eye on that social media? I mean, we had it with a couple of properties, and the rumour started that it was going to be used for illegal immigrants, whatever they were saying. It's really a hateful place to be, and I think that is where a lot of racism begins, on that level of social media. And I just wondered how much of it is noted by you guys that could be the start of it.
Approaches with everything. It gets back to once more the topic we've brought up here. The online space is nebulous, it's huge, and it's ever changing, and it's incredibly difficult to police. But the very nature of it, that is its beauty, is the fact that it's quite difficult to police, and it's a free space. But that's open to abuse by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you allude to just there.
Yeah.
How do we police it? We can't proactively police it. We have to be pragmatic and accept that that's the case. We can't. But then again, how do we police everything? We police that with the consent of our communities, with the cooperation of the individuals who recognise that harm and flag it to our attention. We obviously do have a presence online, but moreover, your police force and your statutory authorities are made up of the very people who live in your communities. So if they see it and report it, then it can be dealt with. And obviously, most importantly, is the people who apprehend that harm, the people who are hurt, they report it. But if they report it, then as and where offences are committed, then they can be dealt with. And that has happened. There are instances of that being the case. But getting back to your original question, do we proactively police that? Potentially that does happen as a result of people occupying that online space. Of course it does. But by the same token as well, it's not something that I could purport that we'd be able to do.
Help me down that and talk at the same time. I'm sure it's important. Yeah.
Just the councillor can, that I think we're.
Sorry, Councillor Biederman, but I've got other people that need to speak. If you want to speak, then.
I suppose it was just, as councillors, we see it, and we're obviously, angry at what's been said on there. If you go to social media, they very rarely take it off. Is there somewhere as councillors we can get hold of yourselves and say, this has been put on there, and this we see as a racist remark, and it is stirring up in the community?
Then you must report it, Councillor Khan. You must report it to the police.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No,
Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Chair. I just,
yeah,
if I may, I'd like to just return to Councillor Youssef's question or statement about the Sunrise Centre, which we all admire, I think, very much, and it not catering sufficiently for the BAME community. Would you mind telling us a bit more about that side of things, please?
Well, as I said in my introduction, you know, we see Sunrise as a start to increase the diverse aspect of our partnership, but by no means the end. You know, we have to start somewhere. We felt that Sunrise are an organisation who successfully represent a number of diverse groups in the community, but of course not all. And you know, we welcome any input in terms of increasing that diversity more of our partnership. The difficulty we have is that you know, there's a finite amount of resources we've got, but we wouldn't want to preclude any group at all from being involved in the work that we're doing. You know, it'd be really positive for us to have as much of a representation as possible. Sunrise merely a start, I think.
And the only qualifying factor is if people live in the community, then they've got to say so.
Yeah,
it's as simple as that. I couldn't speak to where you have derived that, and I'm not to suggest for one moment that what you're saying is not accurate. There are people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups who engage with Sunrise. That is the case. I think what I'm hearing you say is that that's not the predominance of their customer base, which, if that's the case, then, you know, as Tim's alluded to, that's our best hit at the moment. That's that is our most efficient engagement at the moment from our most established partners locally. But if there are organisations, if there are groups that you feel can add that depth and that genuine addition to the diversity of our local community safety partnership, and I for one would be really keen to get them involved.
absolutely. Very happy to engage with anyone who can offer another perspective. Really, that's what we're trying to open ourselves up to.
Chair, could I just
Yes.
add briefly? Then this is a conversation you will be having with Sunrise.
Most certainly, it was the point that I brought up at the end of that is that following the event that's taking place on the 21st, which is the Diversity Festival in Barnstaple, I had diarised an appointment with Sunrise in order to make sure that we reinvigorate this meeting. That is the next step, to bring in the other CSPs, which we've already engaged with from across Devon, in order to do exactly that.
Thank you very much.
I think and also it's worth saying that Sunrise are not claiming to represent all diverse communities in North Devon either. So, you know, they are one member, but we welcome them all. Absolutely do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Finally. It's just a point to note that we have got a performance management framework as part of the council, all of which you will have had a copy of that. Sets out what your roles and responsibilities are in terms of challenging our performance. So what I'm hearing this morning is that actually you'd like some more metrics. I think that maybe an action from your group is to come back to us and tell us what it is you'd like to understand. What, you know, is it purely the number of hate crimes reported, or is it more of a nuance on that? So I think perfectly within the group, if you want to go away and have a think about what it is you'd like to hear from the CSP or for the police or from the council, then we can add that into the framework and be part of our reporting and performance monitoring, whether it's through this group or whether we do it through the performance report that goes to S&R quarterly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Biederman.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm sorry, members of the Chair. I might be in the bonnet. I must have let the wrong side this morning, but you know, we need again. Oh, you David, I thought that was you, Tim. I mean, this is a statutory role we've got as a community safety partnership. And I honestly don't think we grab it and use the best use of it. And Councillor Khan made a really, really good point. I just spent 6 weeks, as did many others in the room, campaigning local elections. And for 5.5 weeks, you know, sounds a bit blasé, but I felt very confident. And the mood changed 3 days before the election, completely changed. Completely. Suddenly I'm from knocking on doors talking about potholes and overdevelopment, infrastructure, health services. It was suddenly all about immigration and it was all around one story. Remington Manor had been bought by the government and was going to be an asylum hotel. You know, I got hold of the can we put out a statement that this is just not true? It didn't just affect my ward. I'm sure it affected many other councillors standing for elections. It wasn't just a Flemington story. It was a great story to spread across the patch. You know, and potentially people lost their council seats because of this story. So I would have thought when misinformation is coming out there, being put out, there's quite clearly misinformation. There's a clear process for the Home Office to follow if they're going to consider using the accommodation in North Devon. We as a council, as a partnership, it's not always, you know, we always look to the police, don't we? Because I think if I rang the police up and said there's this story online about Farrington Manor being used as a, you know, they would have told me to sod off and laughed at me, really, not police.
Hopefully you'd email it.
Well, you know what I mean? But it you know, I think we should be jumping on it. When there's misinformation put out there, I think we as a council and we as a community should be jumping on it immediately. Because it's amazing how many, what I would call bright, clever people that had bought that, you know, that, and when I went to the polling station on Thursday morning, you know, the polling clerk was, you know, she said, "Cool, that's all they're talking about as they're walking in." I got 85% of the postal vote on my stats and end up 59%. So I think this misinformation, it is engineered, it is contrived, and I have no doubt that people lost their council seats over it. And I think we have a duty to the community that they don't, you know, they spend there, some people, bless them, sit there watching 24-hour rolling news, and there only seems to be one story that's on, despite all the problems we've got as a country and as a nation. So I think really as a community safety partnership, you know, we need to give a true, you know, accurate, you know, I'm not trying to say that we should be influencing it the other way either, but we need to make sure that people are called out for misinformation. I mean, the amount of times I've heard in the last 6 to 8 weeks about the Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester buying up all our housing for, you know, is beyond me. And I think, again, you know, I think that is where, if we want to be really sort of give comfort, if you like, to our communities, that actually know we're not being completely and utterly invaded by everybody. You know, this is the truth, this is the facts. You know, and let's be honest, they ain't going to choose North Devon to buy up all the housing stock with our housing prices, are they? You know, to start with, you know, there's a lot cheaper places they can buy houses. But yeah, so I have got to be in my bonnet because I think we have a duty to call out when stuff like cancer goes on social media is plainly untrue.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, Chair.
Just coming back on that point, Councillor Biederman, I think we did get a response out there quite quickly, but we still have to go through those mechanisms of those checks, and that's because we've had a history where perhaps we haven't been notified in a timely manner, and it's that misinformation is only going to increase, definitely. So we need to, it's having those sources and being able to go, but taking the Flemington Manor as an example, we had to go to the South West Council because that's our conduit then through to the Home Office. So it did take.
Yeah, I think probably the Flemington Manor, what through you, Chair, was a poor example because I think it was more the Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester story that, you know, I've raised with Ken several times over the last 6 months. But I was using the Flemington Manor as Councillor Candid as an example of how certain groups can just plant that seed there in the community and it will spread like wildfire in no time at all. And you know, and of course, they keep pumping it out every day.
Yeah.
We might only make a statement once.
Yeah. It is a forum for free speech, and that's its purpose. And it's and people do believe or they don't believe. Yeah, but at the end of the day, sorry, surely the police, because when we see these things, we know where they come from because there's names on people and all the rest, and sometimes it is local people.
I mean, they should.
And
I know it might be fake accounts, but surely can't the police investigate things like
I
that?
don't think it is a police. I just think that we as
Yeah.
a partnership, don't call it a partnership if you're expecting the police to do it.
Yeah.
You know, challenging us
Yeah.
to actually, we can do more.
Okay. Any comments before I wrap this up?
I think the difficulty with all those things forever is
Yeah.
verifying where they come from, the rumours.
I think when we're dealing with any criminal acts of criminality, it's not just the act that takes place, it's the mentality behind it, the actus reus and the mens rea behind an offence being committed. So it's not who it is that's saying, it's why it is they're saying it, what it is they're seeking to get by doing it. And then do we have a specific offence that's been committed when we're taking into account those key aspects? It's not always the case that we do.
And there are ways that you can communicate that information very easily without.
Somebody can say something and believe it to be true, and it's actually demonstrably clear that it's false.
And
If they believe it to be true, it's not an offence.
But is it a crime? It's maybe not a crime.
Maybe not to state something that is it's once more. It's what you say. And if I was to, I mean, for instance, I'm in a public arena. I need to be careful as to what I say, I think. But if I was to ring up and say that there was a fire somewhere when there's not a fire, I think we can all reasonably believe that's a hoax call. It's an offence specific to that, so that we would take some sort of that's false information. That's fake news, as it were. But to say something that's not true, because I want to say something that's not true, it's vastly more complicated legal ground that we're on.
Missing my point. I think what I'm asking is a community safety partnership. As a partnership, and we as a council have got a communications team that are probably monitoring social media all the time, that we're calling out, you know, all the time. It's all AI generated these days. You can
That's a vastly different aspect to what you've take it as a report for the crime.
say, sorry, but that's not true. You know, the council would have been, we'll need to double check to cover, you know, but the council would need to be notified by the Home Office if it was the case, and we have not been notified or received.
I have to say, from a watcher's point of view, from a community member's point of view, I live in this community, and I saw the rebuttal that was placed in timely fashion by your organisation, and it put that to bed.
But the news right, they did, but they keep posting it. So you need to keep, you know what I mean? You almost to keep having to.
That then gets back to the point I made with Councillor Cab mentioned earlier on. It's an incredibly nebulous, and I've used that word 3 times now, space, and that constantly changing, constantly dynamic, with very few static factors involved, is incredibly difficult to corral.
Need legislation that stops fake accounts to start with. You know, you should
Then
have
you're
to.
talking about international legislation, and then the difficulties of people working across borders.
We're around the circus, we're going over the same episode, so, and it is important, so I think we need to stop it now, okay? So I need a mover to note the report, please. Thank you, seconder. All in favour? Thank you very much. Swiftly moving on. Item 7, alternative arrangements for the appointment of subcommittees 2025, pages 30 to 20, report by Corporate and Community Services Officer. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry, I thought there was a little bit more on your report on antisocial behaviour and youth crime. No? Did I hear it wrong?
That way, no, there isn't.
I do apologise. I've got nothing here, so I can't see nothing. So I didn't.
You don't need to.
No, that's what I mean.
It was the antisocial behaviour and the youth crime.
Right, scrub that there. We'll go right back again. Sorry, you like to carry on? Thank you.
Another aspect that was brought up and was raised as one of the priorities for the PSP is youth crime and disorder in our town centres. It's something that as a committee and as a community we're all keenly aware of. I think basically what it arose from the fact that there was lost my person here completely because I put the wrong form in there. I do apologise. Which is not particularly slick, is it? There's an agenda item discussion that came up at the CSP meeting and it regarded youth crime and disorder. We've since collated another meeting between the police, our colleagues in the local youth justice service, and also some other partners locally. Top and bottom of it was there was some rather unpleasant imagery that we've seen circulating on social media more recently, which I know certain councillors are more aware of than others. But as a community, what we realised, and as a CSP, what we realised is that whether something is circulated on social media, which is an imagery of admittedly lower gravity, lower impact offences committed by young people, or indeed offences committed by older people, the harm that is felt, not least by the immediate victim of that, but then by the wider community by seeing these incidents taking place, is significant. And it's something that's felt not just in our town centres, but by the people that use our town centres, or aren't the people that aren't even attending our town centres, but that have the unfortunate opportunity to be able to view that footage. As a result of which, we had made the decision to go down the road of raising youth crime and disorder within our town centres as a priority for the year. We've got ongoing responses to that, which have been in place for well over the last 18 months, which have been our antisocial behaviour meetings, which are held between local authority workers, police and other key partners, once more in youth justice, and elected members. They take place on a monthly basis, and we enjoy really healthy attendance at those meetings. We've also got antisocial behaviour action team meetings, which specifically cater towards youth crime and disorder, and they take place on a monthly basis and have the same partners attending them. And we, as I say, we enjoy some significant success as a result of them. It was basically, this was agreed as a CSP priority at the most recent gathering of the CSP members, because there was a pressing need for the local authority and partners to work more closely to effectively tackle youth crime and disorder. It did arise as a result of some of those social media posts, but also as a result of a spike in offences that had taken place of quite a narrow cohort of young people that did need to be specifically targeted. Currently working towards, as a result of this meeting, better information technology, information exchanges. As I'm sure you're aware, the vast majority of evidence that we have these days, not the vast majority, but a significant chunk of evidence that we deal with, CCTV evidence, online evidence, technical evidence, sharing that in a dynamic way in a speedy fashion is absolutely key to swift resolution of criminal investigations. We're also having to agree protocols with our colleagues in the local youth justice service to make sure that if we are seeing individuals who are committing multiple offences, that we're actually expediting those referral cases through youth justice to make sure that these individuals are being dealt with speedily. What we have to recognise is that when we are dealing with young people who offend, we're recognising that there are adverse childhood experiences. We are recognising that there are different economic and social deprivation factors involved there. But we are recognising that those individuals, all by reason of age, we need to recognise their maturity factors within them as well. These are children, ultimately, and we have to remain cognizant of the fact that irrespective of the harm that somebody visits on their communities, these are young people. That being the case, swift justice, swift disposals are absolutely key. If we're not dealing with things in a timely fashion, then the velocity of offending can sometimes be it can overtake us, and we can't allow that to be the case. What we have done from my organisational perspective is that we have a dedicated child-centred policing investigator to take on those roles, which is something that's we've seen some significant benefits from. And then we obviously have that oversight that's built in by having this as a CSP priority. So that if we're not meeting our expectations in terms of those harms that are being felt from youth disorder in our town centres, then the CSP, obviously having this as a standing item, will give us that oversight going forward. And as I say, those agreed protocols that we're holding with the Youth Justice Service as well helps to manage not only the expectations of our victims of crime, but it also helps to manage the expectations of those people that we seek to pursue for those crimes as well, who are equally important. These are ultimately, and I'll say it again, these are children. And we sometimes can forget that. There's going to be conversations taking place upcoming with our colleagues in Devon County. So looking at bespoke intervention packages with the Youth Justice Service, that's taken place as recently as this week. And what we're also doing is enjoying our engagement, police engagement on the out of court disposal panel or out of court resolution panels, which is basically a formalised meeting that takes place on a weekly basis for young people who are reported for criminal offences, and they undergo a multi-agency discussion on a weekly basis as to the most appropriate and effective outcomes for them. And whether that involves them going to court or being dealt with out of court is the decisions that are made there. Colleagues from education, from health, from social care, from police, and from the local youth justice service attend those meetings most regularly. There's also going to be consideration given to communications delivered around the collaboration between these departments under the governance of the Safer Devon Partnership Board, and that will be relating to this particular CSP priority. Torres District Council, North Devon Council, and Barnstaple Town Council managers are going to be looking at that going forward. Is there any questions anybody has on that at all?
It's okay.
Sorry. Obviously, very interested in the youth side, as my background was in detached youth work. And I feel over the years since I was made redundant that youth crime has increased. Is there any way that the partnership can maybe put the pressure on or, liaise with Devon County Council to have a bit of funding to put these street workers back in our towns? Because I think that's what's lacking. You've got no street-based youth workers in there, and I think it would help. And I know the service was cut because it wasn't a statutory service and it went along with others. It was cut. And I believe that if there was a pocket of money there, that we could possibly get some youth workers back in the town. Not police officers, not community, but good trained youth workers back on the streets.
Yeah, there is an assertive outreach programme ongoing and has been for the last 3 weeks in
Well,
town.
you've got youth workers out there?
There is an assertive outreach programme. There's also been the refurbishment and reopening of the local youth provision at Georgie's over at St George's
Okay,
Road,
that's where I was
which
based.
is really
Yeah.
recent. I'm talking within the last few days.
And they're doing street-based work now.
There is an assertive outreach detached youth work programme ongoing now in
Okay.
Barnstaple Town Centre as a result of that.
Lovely, thank
That's
you.
an application that was put through for the Child Centre Policing Team and delivered in conjunction with my
I mean,
colleagues.
I did 3 sessions, street-based work, and that was all taken away.
No, you've been involved in heavily prior councillor, yes.
Okay.
Rather than police officer than Joyce had.
Well, the young people don't react well to police officers, but they do youth workers, you know?
I agree.
Councillor Williams.
Right, sorry, I was just intrigued by what you were saying about these street-based workers. As you are aware, I still work, and I work in a retail, obviously Ilfracombe, and daily we suffer from abuse, antisocial behaviour, obviously mainly from younger members of the community. I can name them, I know them, I see them daily. And I'm just wondering if the street-based youth workers, you've said they're based in Barnstaple, is there any plans to bring them over to Ilfracombe?
It's a needs, the applications are needs-based, and if indeed we're able to demonstrate those needs locally, then yes, we can make applications.
How do we demonstrate the need locally?
So
Could you
that's
give me
important
some
to-
guidance?
It's reporting incidents. Reporting incidents is going to help the evidence base of what's happening in your town.
But is there funding to increase this to Ilfracombe? Can I ask? Are we, obviously it's a scheme that I've just heard of.
Like I say, it's needs-based. If indeed we are demonstrating that there's a need, and the way in which you would communicate that is to make sure that we're aware of reports. Councillor Barnum helpfully made reference earlier on to when we're seeing if there is an increase in reporting, an increase in statistics for an area, then we can dynamically respond to that, and we can then put those resources towards that. One thing that we do unfortunately sometimes feel is an apathy towards reporting because people don't believe that there's going to be an outcome as a result of it. I'd like to put paid to that, and hopefully people, really reinvigorate people's confidence in reporting when you see that there's been a change in it. The conversations that are going on in Barnstaple at the moment between my teams as a representative of the CSP and obviously our wider partners within Devon County Space are that we're actually going to have designing bespoke packages of intervention akin to that which you've mentioned, Councillor, based entirely on the young people where we know they will be, who they're going to be with, and what activities they're going to be partaking in, whether that's positive or negative, in order that we can actually try and get some, and like I say, it's an assertive outreach programme. It's actually designed to make sure that we meet young people where they are and we engage them with them more meaningfully, rather than their only encounter with statutory authorities being ones that are entirely negative, predicated on a criminal report, which, whilst that's something we need to do, it's not something that we should only be doing.
Right, thank you very much.
In addition to that as well, I think so it shouldn't take place of reporting, but we can extend invites to all members to attend our monthly ASB steering group meeting where we talk about issues that happen in local communities and offer advice. And but I mean that shouldn't stop reporting. Reporting is really important.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I make a point? You said about your monthly meetings.
Yeah.
Could you send out the dates too?
We will, yes, of course we will.
That
Yeah.
that would be very helpful. Councillor Masco.
I just looking at it's not just in the town centres. I represent Braunton, and we've had a spate of ongoing issues with members of staff being assaulted from various establishments where they've tried to stop kids from doing things to their property. Windows smashed. There was a horrible incident at Chivenor on the railway line of a young, and I don't know if that's what you were alluding to, that was posted online of two young people being assaulted. And there's been numerous things going on. I've had phone calls from residents. One lady who told me that her son can no longer go to school because he's so terrified. She's even been with him walking the dog when this gang of youths that terrorise him have tried to attack him even when she was with him. I believe she has been reporting all of this, but it was really upsetting to hear this woman's desperation that she can't even protect her own child. And she also said that she believed that there was a lot of drug activity going on in the village, and that there was what she thought was county lines, that some of these kids were being recruited to carry drugs. And it's really, really worrying, and that's in a rural community where you haven't got that sort of town centre. Maybe that's why it's going on in these sort of smaller communities where there isn't so much sort of monitoring and what can I say to people?
Okay, there's multiple issues there. One, with that, I have to be careful that obviously we're dealing with the significant restrictions about what it is that we're able to share. I hate to keep going back to it. What you said earlier on about once something's online, it's very difficult to change that narrative when we, as statutory bodies, are really restricted as to what we can say. But that's because of a raft of factors. That's not because we don't wish to share. As human beings, of course we do. But at the same time as well, we need to be demonstrably fair and we need to be compassionate with our communities. And that's to all members of our communities, people who it is that have reported to have visited harm, people who have apprehended that harm. We really need to be fair. And that fairness is demonstrated in us maintaining people's confidentiality and anonymity. That's the law, and that's not negotiable. So what is it that you can say? What I can say to you is that when we have had reports of footage appearing online whereby people have been harmed, we've investigated. What I can say to you is that when people have put substantive reports into us and offences have been made out, we have, as part of our duty and as part of, I would suggest, moral duty, we have investigated those. What I can say is that there have been cases of juvenile crimes that have been committed, or crimes that are committed by juvenile offenders, that I can state to you have been taken to a disposal level. They've either seen the inside of a courtroom or they've gone to an outer court disposal panel. I can reassure you that that has happened. And that has happened and will continue to happen as a result of the mandate that my team hold. What I can say as well is that as part of the community safety partnership's concerned, as much as the constabulary is concerned, is that if people are having specific issues with regards to not wanting to go to school, there's a responsibility on the school as much as there is on the police, as much as there is on the elected members, to ensure that that is addressed. And it ultimately gets down to this sort of, and I know I might characterise this as being the panacea, and it is our cure for ills. Report it. We have to have the reports of it. You must coach the electorate to report, and you must support them to report that as well. And I appreciate the fact that there is a level of apathy because people, they don't want to be laughed at. I heard you mention, Councillor, you feel you'd be laughed at if you said that. Do you know what? That would become, the challenge to our organisations. Try to report it, because then at least we have the most realistic idea of what it is that's happening, and the ball most certainly then is in our court. We're duty bound to have to deal with that, and moreover, we're able to then put our resources towards. Resources are finite, and we are under specific pressures, and that's not exclusive to my organisation. That's all government organisations. But if we know what's happening and we're being told where the issues are, then we can better prioritise those resources that we do enjoy. And I know that seems like quite a formulaic answer, but hopefully it gives you the reassurance that you can convey to the people who live in your communities, that if we do have things reported to us, then we are duty bound to deal with it. And then measure it by that, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Beedham, Councillor Whitehead, and then I've got Hannah. Councillor
I
Beedham.
don't know whether the legal advice might be more helpful first, Chair. Might do. You never know.
Yeah, did you want to?
Committee, I just think that, you are a licensing committee and you have members here from the Community Safety Partnership who are here to provide you with reports of what they're doing, how they are involving themselves and keeping you as a committee up to date. And I think you need to, if you're considering other things and want to raise things to their attention, then maybe at a different stage and maybe the next time they appear, say, can you address these issues that we want to hear from you next time? And so, it's not barraged with a load of situations.
Thank you. Taking that on board, Councillor Beedham, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, perfectly. I mean, we are the licensing community safety committee, but I think what you're saying is absolutely right. We can't sort of ransack you and come up with all sorts of things. So I think, but you are getting a flavour. And I think Councillor Cam, I've never agreed with you so much in one.
No, I wonderful, isn't it?
But, I mean, I think it's hilarious, really, because you mentioned all these people that are working around there's problems with children in the town centre. And then we had all these wonderful community outreach youth workers on minimum wage, and they were, your highly qualified police officers, social workers, probation officers. It was all these different people that you mentioned. I'm thinking, it's a bit like the pavements, isn't it? We think it's great, we'll save a few pence by not clearing the weeds in the pavements, and then we're surprised when we have to replace the whole pavement. And I think,
You've got Crochet here.
I support what I think what we should be looking at really is the value of sometimes some proper intervention with people, as like I said, they don't like people in uniforms, they children, they quite like people that they feel like them. So I think it's something perhaps we ought to be looking at as
I have a focus on a key cohort.
I will respect you. I'm getting a little bit frustrated now because the whole idea is we're here to represent our community and be the voice of our community. I feel like we're being like, just be quiet, because Prue's right. What happens in Braunton? We might succeed in Barnstable and routing them all out the high street, but they'll just go somewhere else.
The thing is, we're not here to have a discussion. We're here to ask a question and get an answer to a question. So have you got a specific question?
The question is, are we looking at bringing back in youth services? It's quite obvious of what's going on, really. You've taken away all the youth services, and now you've got youth, antisocial behaviour, crime, everything else. And that's a saddest thing. So, but what I've heard is one of the real saddest thing is what Prue said, when you've then got a child that, or there'll be lots of children that don't even feel safe to go out into their own community to enjoy time with their friends.
Without being, it's difficult for me to balance an answer without giving away the specifics of a particular case. But I hear that you need to be heard, and I think you would indulge that, Chair, and thank you, because I think what you do have is a community that needs to be heard, and subsequently their elected members are striving in their efforts to do
quite
that.
a lot, actually. The key thing is to our constituents, and that is to get the message out there. Phone, every time there's an incident, phone, no matter how trivial it is, the more we bombard with phone calls, the more then we're probably, like we've seen in Barnsley now, because they've had so many bombardments, they've now got the youth in there. It might happen in Braunton, Ilfracombe.
I think if I may, Chair, there's a delicate, and it might be sort of death by semantics here. We don't need to be bombarded with calls. What we do need is, if people feel harm,
That's
and
what I
if
mean.
people are cognizant of a crime taking place, then of course you need to have it reported, and people need to have the courage and they need to have the confidence to do that, and hopefully you can assist them to do that.
Yeah, and maybe perhaps provide them with all the information of how to contact the police. There's a
There's a raft of ways to do it. It can be,
Yeah.
you can report online, you can report via the telephone. We have, a police and crime commissioner has been keen opening up some of our public inquiry offices again, which is, face-to-face option, which people are, we didn't enjoy locally for a little while. So there are a raft of ways in which you can do that. And it's terribly, terribly frustrating to hear that people have apprehended that level of harm. You've made reference to the case that Councillor Maskell helpfully raised. That might, certain cases when they have reached their conclusion and we have intervened and we have made change and we have hopefully ameliorated some level of harm that's occurred as a result of an investigation, don't necessarily get that feedback. Reporting restrictions in terms of juvenile offenders means that we're not allowed to tell you about those. Rightfully so. Which, because you don't hear a resolution to that, then the assumption is that nothing's happened and nothing's got better.
What I'd say on that then is, Councillor Maskell, go back to, if you know the lady, and just see where she is with what's going on with her son in that, and only then can you know which to do the next stage.
I'm also on the police councillor advocate scheme, and that's quite useful if anybody else wants to join. You get a regular chance to chat to your local inspector, which helps.
Thank you. Councillor Whitehead.
I get mine with more of a direct question, in as much as you've given us a lot of information, and I appreciate that, and I will take some of it to my parish council meetings.
Yeah.
But we also have given you quite a lot of information, and particularly Councillor Maskell and her issues. May I ask you if you propose to look at any of the items that my colleagues have brought up?
I've made a note on here that there was the specific request that Councillor Biderman had asked for in terms of data, which Mrs. Lake's been really helpful in going down the road.
But there are other issues with Councillor Maskell and also with Ilfracombe. Are you able to look at those and perhaps come back to the councillors with some help and answers?
Well, I'd need to be a little bit more specific about what help and answer you would like.
I'm sure they will.
In terms of the answer that I've given there, it is a matter of that we need to ramp up with regards to reporting.
Conversation you could have together then.
Yes.
And maybe the forum for that, sorry to interrupt, maybe the forum for that is our monthly antisocial behaviour meeting.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, can I just say so? I would love to come to a meeting, but obviously I wasn't aware of these taking place. And like Julie, Councillor Hans just said, when, where, give me times, give me dates.
There are other elected members that do attend those, not necessarily from the local district council. Some of our town councillors do attend and derive a great deal of benefit.
Well, I'm a town councillor and I've never attended.
And we'll share this committee to attend as well.
Yeah, but it would be helpful. Could you send it out to all of us, please, so that anyone here that would like to attend can attend? Thank you. Right, because we did it before, but we've come back to new stuff. Can I have a mover, please, to note? Thank you. Can I have a seconder? All in favour? Thank you.
Well done.
I'll say sorry to Kevin in a minute.
No apology required. I find it's dead helpful, and all over here is, you know what, the strident tone that I get from you need to be heard, because this is what you get from your constituents. So it needs to be pushed on.
Okay, lovely.
Sorry.
Thank you. Item 7, alternative arrangements for the appointment of subcommittees 2025, pages 13 to 20, report by Corporate and Community Services Officer.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is presented annually at the first meeting of the committee following annual council. And it considers the alternative arrangements for the appointment of subcommittees to support the committee in its work. The committee have operated for a series of 5 subcommittees, appointing delegated powers detailed in Appendix A of the report. The committee today has been asked or been recommended to pass a resolution as detailed in paragraph 2.2 and 2.3 to appoint subcommittees, and that they are not politically balanced. So recommendations are under paragraph 2, with an additional recommendation that members be appointed to the subcommittees as detailed in Appendix B of the report, Chair.
Thank you. Have you all had a chance to look at Appendix? I'll come to you in a minute. Appendix B. And is everyone happy in which one they're in? Councillor Beedman.
I was just going to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Is there anyone got any questions before we move the recommendation? Everyone's happy? Okay. Do I have a seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much. And I think.
We didn't want you to have too easy a time, Chair.
That's it. Thank you very much. Meeting closed at 11:50.
Thank you.